Hello, everybody. Welcome to the June 2nd edition of the Intuit Developer Friday Morning Hangout. I'm your host, David Leary. I'm the Intuit Small Business Ecosystem Evangelist. You can find me at David Leary on Twitter. Today we have special guest, Diana D. Rose. She's our Intuit Senior Developer Engineer, Developer Relations Engineer. Diana's done a lot of work with the sample code and the GitHub repositories. I'm not sure if she's authored all the code, but I think she has in like 4 different languages. It's kind of amazing. So I will get rolling with Diana and have her give the tour of all the sample code that's available and all the resources, the SDKs that you guys can download and use for really speeding your app development. Before that, I'm just going to jump into a couple of other things, touch on a couple other things. If my slide would actually go to the next slide. There we go. Don't forget, Small Business App Showdown. We think we're down to now 75 days left for you to get your app live on apps.com and into the contest by August 16th. Again, we are going to take the top 10 finalists of this contest to QuickBooks Connect. And you will have a booth at QuickBooks Connect, and you have the ability to pitch in front of thousands of accountants. So I know the registration for the accountants is higher than it ever has been, and so the pitch night is going to be in that first night when all the accountants are there, and we expect to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not, I mean, my goal is to have 1,000 accountants sitting there watching you guys pitch your apps, and the winner will win $100,000. So just making the final 10 is a huge boost to your app. It's huge exposure. It's very, very exciting, but you are running running down with time to enter. This is a screenshot, so the countdown timer is not 116 days. I think it's about 75 days right now. So if you have any problems or you're stuck in the tech review, you need any help, shoot me an email, david_leary@intuit.com, and I'll help you move down the funnel to get you successfully published in time. And then again, QuickBooks Connect. So as a developer, you want to come to QuickBooks Connect. You're going to have all those accountants are there. We're going to have lots of small businesses there. We're going to have about 800 developers by the time you count all the sponsors and you count the other developers that are there for the developer sessions. Then you have the Intuit employees and the Intuit team. So mark your calendars, November 15th through the 17th. You want to come to QuickBooks Connect. Even if you're not a finalist in the App Showdown, even if you're not renting a booth, you still want to come to the event. Just having lunch with accountants, eating breakfast with accountants, just wearing your product t-shirt while you walk around is huge opportunities for you. And it starts taking those next steps to have that deeper relationship with the small business owners of QuickBooks and the QuickBooks accounting community. So hopefully we'll see you guys there at November 15th and 17th in San Jose. Also, we've just announced QuickBooks Connect. We're actually going to do this in Toronto as well. I will next week have the exact date for that. I'm not positive of the exact date, but if it should be quickbooksconnect.com/ca for the Canadian event. And then, as always, you can find all the Hangouts and any other events we're doing on the Hub events page. So it's developer.intuit.com/hub/events. And you can come here, make sure you're ready for every Hangout that we're having. And again, usually the Hangouts, we're going to do a guest, and then the opposite week, we'll do open office hours. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing here and switch the camera over to Diana. Diana, hello. Thanks for being a guest today. How's it going?
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Diana D. Rose. I'm a developer relations engineer with the Intuit Developer Group. I joined Intuit and the developer relations team here over a year ago. Prior to joining Intuit, I've been working primarily as a backend engineer, working for over a decade now. Working mostly on Java projects and a little bit on Node.js and PHP. Here at Intuit, I work primarily with the third-party developers to help them with their QBO integrations. And I also manage the Java SDK for the QuickBooks Online v3 APIs. In addition to that, I love creating sample apps, so that is why I'm here today. I feel it is a fun way to learn a new language and understand it better by writing sample code. So quick background on what got me started into this sample code roadmap. So early last year when I first joined the team, I found myself encountering developers who had issues with the integrations, like uploading attachments or creating an invoice or something or the other. And every time when a developer asks some questions, the first thing that I would do is go write the program of my own to try out the API, mimicking the exact use case that they're facing issues with. And then based on that, I would provide them feedback or any solutions. And then over the time, they started to get a little tedious because every developer has their own different issues to solve. So then I realized, hey, why not write CRUD samples for all the entities that we have available? So that's how I started writing CRUD samples for all the entities in Java, since Java was my comfort language. And then we released the CRUD samples to all of our developers, and really we got some positive feedback. And then we noticed that we have a lot of PHP developers in our ecosystem. So then we created similar samples in PHP and eventually in .NET. So that is how it all got started.
So a lot of it was just kind of side. Like you get a tech support ticket. How do I do this? You go do the code to do it, and you started building up your own little mini repository, and then you figure out, okay, well, how do I might as well just do it for every entity and get it out there.
Right. And also, personally for me, I felt like I can't support the API if I haven't tried it all myself. So that was also kind of the motivation on what got it started. So that's how we started writing. I started writing all the samples for all the entities, and here we are.
Awesome. Perfect. I'll let you take a moment to get your screen share, and you can kind of give us a tour of where to find these on the developer site, what code's available, how it ties back out to the GitHub repositories, and then also how it ties back into the SDKs. Because even though the SDK is not sample code, I feel like it's just, in general, falls under an umbrella of like, here's ways to go faster, right? Like here's sample code, you can use that to go fast. You can use an SDK to go fast, and it'd be great to touch on those as well. So while you're sharing the screen, I'm just gonna, for everybody else that's attending, please, any questions you have along the way, please definitely use the Q&A panel, and I will ask those to Diana. And if you have any chats or any side conversations, please use the chat, the webinar chat for that. Don't use the Q&A because it gets a little confusing when people are asking questions to each other, and that question's for Diana in the Q&A. So with that said, Diana, feel free to share your screen and jump in.
Sure. So I'll be sharing three main things here today. First, the samples page, and then secondly, I'll talk a little bit about the SDKs, and finally, I will also walk you through the Postman collections. So are you able to see my screen now, David?
Yep, it's working.
Okay. Cool. So the very first thing that I want to show you is the samples landing page that we developed. It's called intuitdeveloper.github.io. I'm not sure if everyone already knows about this, but this is one of the new landing pages that we created recently. You can also access this directly from our documentation site. So if you go to developer.intuit.com, under Docs and Tools Guide, under Sample Apps, you'll find the link to this page here and link to the rest of the samples here as well. So coming back to this page, it gives you a overview of all the working samples that we have available with links to the source code in the GitHub repository over here. It just gives you a better organized view of all the different samples that we have available. The default view of this page is sorted by feature. So on top we have OAuth. OAuth is still one of the biggest features that a lot of our developers struggle with. So you can see here all of our OAuth samples are available in many different languages. We have it in Java, .NET, PHP, Python, Node.js. And if you click on any of these links, it will take you directly to our GitHub repository from where you can directly download and run the app. The next section, we have webhooks samples. So I believe in July last year, we released this feature called webhooks. It's basically a push notification. So if you are an app developer and you need real-time information, instead of polling our APIs periodically, you can use webhooks. You can subscribe to webhooks and have the information sent to you. And in order for you to use webhooks, you'll need to have an endpoint on your end for us to push notifications to. And these samples basically show you how to create that endpoint and how to process the even notifications that we send to you and how to validate the payload and so on. So we have those samples available again in 3 different languages. And then next we have the CRUD sample. So this is the sample that I was talking about, simple standalone programs to run for CRUD operations for each of our entities. I'll open one of these and show you how it looks like. So this is not a full-blown app, like you don't have to deploy it anywhere or run it. It's organized in, under each of these samples, there's this folder called entities, and under each entity, you'll find a package or a folder for each of the different entities that are available. And if you open any one of them, you'll find individual classes for each of the operations supported by that entity. So, for example,
so you don't just have a sample just for the one part of the operation, you're doing the full CRUD workflow.
Right, and you don't have to run the whole thing to try it out. You can just, if you're interested only in account create, then you can just go here and run just this one class alone and see how an account creation works. So you can import all of them, but if you're not interested in, say, journal entry or budget or any other entities, but you just want something on invoice, then you can just go here and run one of these classes and see how invoice void works or invoice create works. So these are also available again in Java, PHP, and .NET, and all of these use our SDKs to show you how to call the API using our SDKs. And next we have a few orchestrated samples. This one shows how to create an invoice and do time tracking for the invoice. This is also available in Java and .NET. And then we have all the other miscellaneous samples organized here. So we have a few Windows samples. We newly added a Python and a Node.js sample. Let me open that a little bit and show you what it's about. So again, we realized we didn't have too many Python samples in our repo. So this is one of the new samples that we added. It uses a Flask framework, and it's a very simple use case. All it does is it shows you how to make the C2QB call and get the OAuth tokens. It doesn't use any SDKs. It's just plain Python code, and then it shows you how to call the QBO API for adding customers. So basically there'll be an Excel sheet where you can store all the customer leads or customer data, and it'll just load it in an sample UI where it'll ask you, do you want to add a customer? And once you click add, it shows how to call the QuickBooks Online API for adding customer, and it adds it to the QBO company that it's connected to. So very simple use case, but it basically shows you how to make the OAuth call, get the tokens, and how to use it to make the API work. So that's the Python sample, and then just on the last one is the Node.js. This actually we just released yesterday. This is again a very simple use case. This one uses our Node.js SDK, the one which is contributed by our community. So this one shows you how to, I believe there's some screenshots here for that one. So yeah, it'll show you how to connect to QuickBooks, authorize, and get the tokens. And if you have customers in your sandbox account, it'll list the top 10 customers and items. And once you select the customer and item, it'll show you how to create an invoice and just a results page of how the invoice is created. So again, a very simple use case, but if you look at the code, you'll see how to make the call to get the tokens and make the API call. So those are the samples here. I want to stress a little bit more on this page. So we also have a feature called sort by language. So if you're just like a Java developer or a Node.js developer, and you want to you're just interested in looking at samples for one particular language, then you can do the sort by language feature, and you can go here and see, okay, what are the samples available for that particular language. So we have Node.js, PHP, Python. And we also have some quick links here. So we hope that we'll be adding a lot more samples in the future, and it will become very hard to scroll through this page and look for each sample. So we have some quick links here, and also a search button here. So if you want to just like search for webhooks samples, you can type webhooks, and it will show all the webhook samples available. The search only works by title names and descriptions, but it doesn't really search the contents of the GitHub repository. So just be mindful of that. And right on top here, we also have a direct link to our GitHub repo. So if you're just interested in looking through GitHub, you can go here. It's called github.com/intuitdeveloper. And all of our samples are available there as well. So you can browse through them here.
And Diana, these are just going to be our samples that we've written from Intuit, correct?
Yes, yes. I believe a few years back, we also had some third-party developers contribute to some of our samples, but we don't have any newer samples contributed by third-party developers. But
okay,
if
so
we have developers interested, we can definitely add theirs. But this is solely what we manage.
Okay, because I know that we have like third-party tools and sample code that's available, and a lot of it is out there on GitHub, but it's like under their own separate repositories. It's not directly tied to the Intuit navigation structure. And
Right.
so we could probably, like once you're kind of finished with showing the GitHub stuff, we could probably go back to the developer site and just kind of talk through those a little bit as well.
Sure, yes. So far, this one is managed by us. So most of the samples are created by the Intuit team here, and one or two are contributed by our developers as well.
Okay.
And then the next one here is the Intuit developer gist. So these are again standalone samples. These were created a while ago. Whenever developers have some particular use case where they want to see some samples, so prior to creating our samples here, we shared it using gist. So some of these might be a bit old, but there might be some use cases which aren't covered in samples that you might find here, like testing platform APIs or payments. Maybe entitlements API and so on. So if you don't find anything in the main GitHub repo, feel free to look here. And if you don't see it here either, then do reach out to us and we'll be happy to add additional samples. That's pretty much I had on the sample side of things. I would like to talk more about SDKs next and then go to the Postman collections.
Okay, cool. It's good. It's good that you're going to cover Postman. I was kind of thinking about that as you were showing some of this other stuff. Perfect.
Okay. So the next thing is the SDKs. So I'm not going to walk you through the SDKs, but just want to call out here that all of our three Intuit managed SDKs in .NET, Java, and PHP are open source now. And open sourcing the SDK was one of our top developer requests for a while now. So we've listened to you and we've cleaned up our SDKs and licensed them, and it's all available now on Intuit GitHub repository. So the links to those.
And Dan, just to clarify, the QuickBooks Online .NET SDK is open source.
Yes, all
the
three.
Online ones. Okay, got it. Okay, these are for online. Okay, just want to make sure we're perfect.
Yes, all the three are for online, not for desktop.
Got it.
So the links to their repository is available here. So if you go here, it's under github.com/intuit. So just a quick, just a pointer that SDKs are under github.com/intuit and our samples are under Intuit developer. So both are different repos. So just to be mindful, if you want to see samples, it will be under Intuit developer, but the SDKs would be under Intuit. And also, in addition to making the source code available, we've also published all the three SDKs in a central, public central repositories, which means, PHP is now available in Composer, Java is available in Maven Central, and .NET is in NuGet. Prior to doing this, a lot of our PHP developers had to download the whole PHP SDK source code into their app before they could use the SDKs, and it was kind of a pain for developers to download the whole source and make their app bulky. Similarly, in Java, developers had to install the SDK in their local Maven repo before they could use it. So now that we have all of these available in Composer and Maven and NuGet, you no longer need to copy the whole source in your app. You can directly link to it using the import links for these SDKs. And then again, since these are open sourced, you are free to contribute to all of our SDKs. So if you have any ideas for new features, or if you think we can improve the code in any way, feel free to create pull requests. Or you can also create issues if you want us to add something new, and we'll be happy to work on those as well. And then finally, a quick note, we've been working. Yes.
Diana, before you jump off of that, if you go back to the previous tab you were just on.
This one?
So yeah, so I mean, there's a feedback cycle here, right? If people want to say, please add this, or they can contribute to the SDKs. Is that same feedback cycle available for the sample code? Like if somebody's like, hey, I'd like to see sample code for blah, 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 they can do the same?
Yes, you can always create issues here, and then whatever issues or new feedback you have, you can create here, and we constantly monitor it. So
okay, got it.
Similarly, if you want to just contribute, you can create a pull request here, make the changes and create pull request, and we'll approve it if it's like valuable or meets our standards, and we'll
great
the pull request.
Great. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. So just one last thing. We are constantly working on updating all of our 3 SDKs. We've done quite a lot of work in the last 6 to 9 months. We've fixed a lot of bugs. We've added support for webhooks and the latest minor version. And also we've upgraded a lot of the libraries that the SDKs internally depend on. So I know as an app developer, once you use the SDK, you probably don't go back and upgrade it to the latest version. But if you haven't done in the last 1 year, I would strongly suggest that you take some time and see if you can update it to the latest version. On the PHP side, we've also added support for supporting Facade. And on the Java, we've made a lot of improvements, and .NET as well. So do take some time to upgrade to the latest version to take benefit of all the new features that we've added. And we will continue to add new features in the future as well. So it'll be really valuable if you update to the latest version if you haven't done for a year or more. So that's about on the SDKs. I will now go to Postman collection. David, is there anything else you want to ask before, or shall I jump to Postman?
I think maybe before we jump to Postman, somebody did have a question specifically about a sample code.
Okay.
Really around the OpenID, the apps.com workflow, right? So I'm gonna take my app, build it out. I built my OAuth connection, and I want to go deeper, and I want to build that OpenID one-click sign up via the Get App Now button on apps.com. Is there sample code that really touches on some of the, I know you're about to show us Postman, and that I think really catches the OAuth stuff, but what about OpenID? Do we have sample code for OpenID?
I think this one over here, this is a PHP sample, I believe, and this is the Java one. So both of these show you the OpenID flow. I'm not sure which language they're interested in, but if they can take a look at both of these, it will show you the whole OpenID flow as well. Okay. And now let me see if there's any other OpenID samples anywhere here. Doesn't look like there's any for .NET. I think, yeah. So if you search for OpenID here, and I believe, just these two will be coming up. So there's one in PHP and one in Java that they can refer to see how OpenID flow can works with the SDK or even without the SDKs.
Got it. And then there was somebody actually asked a side question. I think you mentioned Composer a couple times, and somebody just wanted to better understand what is Composer when you're saying the word Composer. What are you speaking of?
Oh, okay. So like in Java, we have something called Maven Central. So in order for you to use a particular open source SDK, you can directly, let me show you a code, maybe if I have a sample here. So assume this is a Java project, and if I need to use the Java SDK, I can just put a dependency here, and it will automatically take it from the public cloud repo. You don't have to, directly add, include the, download the jar and include it in your project. So earlier, our PHP developers, they had to download the whole PHP source code and put it in their app, the whole source folder in their app for the SDK to work. With Composer, you can just, it's like an import statement, an equivalent of import statement. I'm not sure which language you are familiar with, but so it's just like a one-line import, and the whole SDK will be available in your code without having to include the whole source code. So that's that's how the Composer works. So if you're in from the .NET side of things, it's like including a NuGet package in your code. Or if you're in Node.js, it's like adding like an npm install. So it's just like a one-line import statement, and you'll have all the features of the SDKs included in your code without having to import the whole source. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. And on to Postman.
All right. So the next thing that I want to show you is Postman. So before I start on Postman, just a quick background on what Postman is. It's a REST client tool, which means you can use it to test any REST APIs. Since most of our Qubio V3 APIs are REST-based, we find it as a very useful tool for debugging and testing Postman, all of our APIs. So what we've done is we've created Postman collections for all of our APIs that you can import, and it will have all the sample requests for all of our APIs, and you can try out the APIs without actually writing any code. So again, under the tools section, we have a section here called Postman, and we have 3 collections here. The first one is like our CRUD samples. This one will have all the entities, CRUD samples for all of our accounting entities. And then the second one is a orchestrated collections. So we've chosen a few orchestrated scenarios like creating an invoice, paying bills, creating sales receipts. So some of the common scenarios that we think would be useful. So we've created a collection to show you how to do a particular transaction. So those samples are available under here. And finally, we also just added, this one was added just yesterday, we've added full CRUD samples for our payments API. So I will demo and show you how to use these samples. Before you can use it, you'll have to go to getpostman.com and get the Postman tool. It's available for free, and they have a Mac version and a Chrome version, probably also a Windows version. So feel free to download that. And once you download that, you can click on any one of these samples, and it will prompt you to open it in whichever version of the Postman tool that you have. Sometimes this page, Chrome sometimes doesn't load the plugin. So if you don't see these icons, just refresh the page and you'll be able to see these buttons here. So click on these and it'll prompt you, and once you click on this, it'll import the collection. I already have all the 3 collections imported, so I'll directly show you my Postman view. So this is how the tool looks like. And as you can see, I've imported all the 3 collections here. And before you can run the collections, you'll also find that a few environment variables have got imported. 2 of these are these. I've also added some additional ones for my testing purpose. What these environment variable does is, let me go back and show you. So by default, you'll have this variable over here imported. It has placeholder values, fields to put your consumer key, secret, and access token in secret. I'm assuming at this time, most of you all know how to get these, but if you don't, please reach out to me separately and I'll show you how to generate these. But basically, these are available in your key section of your app, consumer key and secret, and access token and secret you can obtain by doing the OAuth. You can use the playground to generate the OAuth tokens and put the values here. Next field is the base URL. We've already put the sandbox base URL here, but if you're testing against production, you can always change it to the production URL. And finally, the company ID and minor version. So before you run, fill out the values in here. I've already filled it out for one of my sandbox environment over here. And once you filled it out, make sure to select the right environment. And let me open and show you one of the collection here. So this is the main accounting collection. And as you can see here, again, we have all the folders here for each of the entities. And under that, we have sample CRUD samples, or samples for each of the operations. So if you click on one of those, you'll see in the authorization tab, we have the OAuth 1.0 already pre-selected. And there are some placeholder values here. You don't have to change anything over here. So the way this works is it will automatically get the value from the environment variable that we picked here at runtime and add it to your request header. So don't change anything over here. Just all you need to do is put the value of your tokens in your sandbox environment and pick it here. The headers are also automatically added for you, and as well as the body. You are free to change the body to test your particular scenario. And let's try running one of these. So I have an account read all. So my body says select start from account and max results 5. So I just hit send. And here you go. Let me scroll it a little bit so you can see the sample. Yeah. So here's the response. It has retrieved all the 5 accounts here. And you can also, let me scroll it a little bit up. Yeah, you can also see all the request headers are generated, response headers. And one other cool feature about Postman is that they have this button here called generate code. And what it does is it generates code for the same request. So let me click and show you how that works. So here they have several different languages here, and you can choose to see how a sample request can be for the particular request that you just ran. So it has generated me a curl request for the account query that I just ran. Similarly, if you want to see it in PHP, you can generate it a PHP request or Python. And this, I find it very useful because when developers are trying in a particular language that I'm not very familiar with, I try it out here and then I provide them with samples. Like just a few weeks ago, I had a Python developer who was having trouble with attachments, and no matter what he tried, he was getting into error. And so I tried it out, his same request in Postman, and generated the Python request equivalent of it and sent it to him. And once I sent him that, he was able to compare his with mine, and he was able to figure out what was wrong in the code. So this is a very useful tool, and I know we have similar capabilities with API Explorer, but with the API Explorer, it auto-generates the OAuth token for you in background. But if you want to go one step forward, generate your own tokens and try out the APIs without actually writing any code, this might be a very useful tool for you to try it out. So yeah, similarly, we have, again, we even have all the reports API here. So if you want to try out the reports with different querying options, you can try the reports here as well. So those are the accounting API collections. Similarly, we have all for payments APIs here as well. So you can try out the payments one. I'm not going to show you the payments one, but I will show you the orchestrated one because that runs a little differently than the rest of the collection. So on the orchestrated APIs, we have these 6 different use cases. So we have, say, create an invoice. It shows you basically to create an invoice what all steps are required. So you first need to create a customer, you need an item, and then use that to create an invoice. So a lot of times developers ask us, okay, I want to create an invoice. What are the steps required? So this basically shows you, what are the steps required to create an invoice, or time activity or any other use case. You can run these requests individually, like how I ran the account read, but the purpose of this collection is to run all of them together. So in order to do that, on the top left corner, there is a runner option which says run collection. So click on the runner button, and then you can choose which collection you can run. So I'm going to choose the orchestrated API collection, and you can choose to run all of them together, but just in the interest of time, I'll just run create an invoice. And then once I select that, pick the environment. So I'll pick my sandbox environment and click start run. And once you do that, it has started creating the customer, the item, and invoice. And all of them have passed. And if you click here, I can check my request URL, header, body, and response, everything. So that's another way to run the collections and see how the whole flow works. So And you can always go back and configure if you're interested in just one particular minor version. You can modify it. You can also test it against your prod companies. So yeah, that's all I had. That's the Postman collections. That's all I had, David. Just a quick, just a little about our roadmap on the samples. We are planning to add a lot more samples in our GitHub repository. We'll be working on adding a lot more Python and Node.js samples, and probably Angular and some other different languages. But if you feel like any other, if you have ideas for other features or any other languages that you'd like to see samples, please do reach out to me or our team and let us know, and we'll be happy to add more samples.
Got it. So we'll open up the floor to more questions as they come in. I know that one of the big questions people keep asking about is there do we have sample code for the full end-to-end apps.com dance? So really specifically, it would be this chart here. If I'm going to paste the link in if you want to. Let's see here.
Right, and actually, just since you brought it out, just last week we were chatting internally, and we probably don't have the whole end-to-end right now, but we do have plans of adding the whole end-to-end. How a particular apps.com app, a good sample app should look like. So we are planning to add a sample with the whole apps.com experience. But let me
yeah, because essentially, I mean, we have the whole flow chart, right, of the dance, but I think people are really looking for that sample code, to actually do that full end-to-end dance back and forth.
Yeah, I know there's like bits and pieces of this whole flow in our samples, but there's probably not one single app that does the whole end-to-end of a great apps.com app. So we do have that in our roadmap, and hopefully we'll be able to get it out soon. Yeah.
Great.
Is there any specific language that that person is interested in who had asked this question?
That I don't know. John, if you could clarify that in the chat, what language you'd like to see that in, that full end-to-end flow? Goodness, you think something's on your clipboard and then you do a Control V and nothing pastes. Control C. See, I'm not sure if he put anything in the chat yet or not. Yeah, he didn't have that. I did get a couple of smaller questions. It looks like they're coming in from. Can I pop this out? Let's see. Yeah. Go back to the chat. From Luke Wells. He was asking, he was specifically want to know if you could give the line to include in Composer and for Composer and a PHP line to import all the PHP classes. Can you kind of show an example of the specific code you do to do that?
Let me see if it's there in the GitHub SDK sample.
Okay.
Let me just quickly grab that to see if. So I'm going to share my screen again, David, if it's okay.
Okay.
All right. So I went from here and clicked on the PHP SDK repo, and under that, under configuration in the README file, there's this line here, require QuickBooks Online, QuickBooks/v3 PHP SDK. So this will make sure you have the PHP SDK through Composer. So just read through the configurations here. I don't manage the PHP SDK, so, but my colleague Hao, if you have questions, you can create an issue here, or reach out to us. We'll be happy to answer. But there are steps here provided here to install the SDK through Composer and configure it in your program. So you may want to take a look at the README file in this repo to see how to use it. I can't hear you, David.
Sorry about that. If you can share again, Diana, I'm wondering if you could go back to the main tools page. So on the developer site. Yeah. If you scroll down to the right a little bit, whoops, sorry. The overview page, perfect. The third-party tools.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't speak to the detail levels of these, but if you're somewhat familiar with these, you can get an overview of this. I think this would be really helpful also.
Sure. So third-party tools are basically these are not Intuit contributed or supported. These are developers in our community who have created SDKs or samples in several different languages to help with the QBO integration. So I know a few of them. So Node.js is one of the Node SDKs that we have, and I have personally used this, and it's really great. And similarly, we have SDKs in Consolibyte. I believe a lot of you know this is the PHP Consolibyte QuickBooks Online SDK, and the Python. This is the Python QuickBooks is the Python SDK for Python, and there's also the one for Ruby. This is probably not a SDK. It's just a sample code to show you how to make the Java service calls. And this is probably a Perl script. This is again an OAuth sample using Go script. This is again a tool. So a lot of our developers would like to copy their production data into the sandbox account for testing. And here at Intuit, we don't provide that capability currently for security reasons or whatever. So one of our developers actually created this tool which allows you to copy, if there's a production account that you have and you would like to test some features in your sandbox, so you can delete the data in sandbox and use their program to copy from data from production to sandbox.
So that can be really handy because we allow people to reset their developer sandbox now, correct? So I could have a set of real genuine customer level data, and I just bring it back down, bring it back down as I'm doing my development processes. That's great.
Yeah, so that's the QBO Sandbox one, and these are just some samples in QBO shell script and some sample code in ASP.NET and Drupal. So yeah, this is a mix of both, useful tools, sample code, and the SDKs, and all of them are really good, and they're all like open sourced and community supported.
And how are we getting these listed on here, Diana? Are we kind of just, as we stumble across these, we just add it, or people send us an email like, hey, look, I made this?
Yeah, so some of them we already know, like, this is by Keith Palmer, and we know about some of the major ones. It's the developers that we work with frequently, and we know about it. So some, like the Google script, I just stumbled upon it, and I saw, okay, this is a very useful sample we don't have, so we linked it here. And again, I think this one also is built by the same developer who built the Node.js. So this, I believe William, or I believe either the developer told us or we found it. So sometimes a developer, while they're working on their issue and they don't find a sample, they create it and then they let us know, hey, I did this, and maybe others can find it useful. So sometimes developers tell us through support tickets, and sometimes we stumble upon. So it's a mix of both on how we got these lists. And if there are more, we would love to add them here.
Yeah, and maybe that's an action item for all you developers that are watching, right? If you have improvements to any of the sample code, please submit those through GitHub. You have improvements to the SDKs, submit through GitHub. If you've built something on your own and you want to share it with other people, please let us know so we can get it listed here. Because I think there's no point of developers doing work that another developer may have already done. So if you're willing to share your code, that's amazing for the community. That's great. So I don't see any more questions coming in. Let me just double check the Q&A panel here. Yeah, no specific questions were coming in. Luke was wondering if you could actually show your own code as far as like is it the PHP code? Yeah, I think you want to see that in your PHP code, the line you use to import the PHP classes.
Do you want me to show it?
Yeah. If you could show your code, he's just wondering, because he tried to use include underscore once and it didn't seem to work.
Oh, I see. Okay. Maybe I can chat with him offline. I can get How on the room as well, and he can.
Yeah. Let me do this. I'm gonna temporarily promote Luke to a panelist so we can hear his. That'll flip on his camera and his microphone, and he can ask and then maybe clarify. Because sometimes it's hard in chat to get the exact question down. So let me just promote him temporarily. And Luke, you're.
Very much.
I just unmuted you and turned you on, so you're a panelist now temporarily.
Now I have to share my screen, right?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, look, this is probably really dumb, but okay, this is my I didn't have any problems with the OAuth, except for last week I couldn't figure out what the OAuth's token secret was, but I got that by I guess just printing. Printing either the headers or the post, I forget, but I found it. Somebody told me it lived in the session, so I guess I printed the session, right? So I have this. I'm not really interested in any of just the stuff that I'm doing right now being permanent or, you know, storing the tokens, and I don't care if any of this is long-term viable. What I'm trying to do is just make sure. But here is my configuration code, SDK config, and here is what I did by hand because I couldn't. I put the errors on here, and it would say, oh, this wasn't found. So I kept entering them and entering them and entering them. And they seem to be out of order so a lot of the time. One was looking for another. Anyway, with all of these things, it finally understood what data service was, and I did this configure SDK. And this was the one I wanted to do by hand, if I did this, it doesn't know what data service is. I don't know why. So anyway, what happens is, do you guys see what I'm doing so far?
Yeah, so if you just pause for a second, Luke. So the real question is, is there a more efficient way to include all? Like, because obviously doing one at a time, it's difficult, and then the order and the dependencies, etc. So just let's pause and give Diana a moment to kind of interject here.
Well, Diana, you told me about Composer.
Right.
And I intend to find out how to use that. You showed me the line of code to get it. So I think you answered that.
Yes, and there's also information on the SDK page. I can send it to you separately, in the interest of time. And there's instruction on how to install it and use it.
Let me just show you my page of errors, and can you guess? Just empty your mind and speak in tongues or whatever. Just sort of try to intuit what do you think is happening here. You see what I mean? Okay.
So from what I know, you probably don't have to import all of these, like all individual files. You probably can just do it in one step. So Luke, when you run, what error do you get? Can I see your error?
Yeah. Can you see this page? Can you see my error here?
I still see the index.php.
Oh, I gotta change new share. Okay, sorry. Here's my page of errors. I changed mine to minor version 8 because you seem to be on minor version 8, which I don't understand what that means, but
Yeah, that shouldn't really cause the error.
Yeah, right. So it looks like
Yeah, it looks like the URL or something is wrong.
in the app.
Yeah, can you just copy that, paste that error on the chat, and I'll look into it and get back to you maybe.
Oh yeah, you got it. Q&A, more, chat, here. I can show you my app settings. Do you want to see that?
Sure.
Okay.
So quick question, is this company a sandbox company or a production company?
This is a production company.
Okay.
Because
And I also see, okay, so just one quick thing. I see the URL is a little wrong. There should be a slash after .com and before v3. So if you go back to your config and see if that is configured right, it looks like it's missing a slash in the URL.
here.
I can't see your, I'm still seeing your error page.
Yeah, you're sharing your browser, but in that area, you can, yeah, see that it's missing the slash. Because you're still sharing the slash.
So probably in the,
But that's all commented, right?
in your SDK.config, I believe it's coming from there. Probably put a slash at the end after com on the base URL. QBO.
You're good. What about this one?
Yeah, that one.
Well, that's better.
That's better. Okay, so this probably means that your token is not valid anymore, or something wrong with the tokens. But at least we know it went past that error, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, when you can ask for the tokens, you can ask for their length, right? So I
Yes.
asked for mine to last for a long time.
So did you use the OAuth playground to generate the tokens, or did you generate it using your code?
No, I generated it myself using I'll show you how I generated it. Oh. Come on now. I generated it. I'm sorry. Hold on. All right, here they go. I generated it using this. And now maybe I have to share the screen again. No, you can see that, right? No, I have to share the screen again.
No, I can see it. It's just very small. So
and this works. This gives me the token, and I think I might have had to use another.
So sometimes if you run it twice, then the old token actually gets invalidated and a new one is generated. So maybe you can.
I indeed ran it twice, and I didn't put the new token information in there.
Yeah, so you may want to just regenerate again, get a fresh set of tokens and put it in your config and try again. And I'm pretty sure if the tokens are valid, it'll work. Because right now the only error I see in your app is unauthorized, which means your token probably expired or got invalidated.
Yeah, and you got over that hurdle now of the bad URL, because that was stopping that was causing most of your problems, I think, is missing that slash in front of the
I love
V3.
you guys. I'm
Cool.
very happy about that. Okay, well, I'm not gonna make you wait to
Awesome.
fill in the new tokens. So
cool. All right, Luke, I'm going to put you back move you back as an attendee again. But thanks for being willing to share your code, and I'm glad we were able to solve that for you.
Sure.
I want to change over to attendee. And we have about 5 minutes left here. Dana, are you kind of, obviously, a lot of this sample code you came kind of as a side project you were doing. Are you kind of working on any other side projects right now that you're willing to disclose or let us know? Like, so something else we might get excited about because you have something else coming down the pipe?
Well, there's a lot of things some I'm not allowed to tell. Some
Okay.
I can tell. But personally, I want to create one in using Go script. So I'm thinking that's a new language that I haven't really worked much with. So that's something I'm working on behind the scenes to create a sample using Go script. But as I mentioned earlier, like we would love to add a lot more samples in any language that you'd like to see. So if there's any other language, which is not in our roadmap and you would like to see, I would really be happy to play around with it and create a new sample on it.
Great. And then just one more question to kind of slide in here. It looks like Composer is the hot topic of the day today.
Right.
Mammy has a question. Mammy, I'm going to temporarily promote you to a panelist. You can kind of clarify what about, because you want some information on Composer, but it feels like a pretty broad question. I'm going to promote you to panelist. You can kind of ask it that way. And maybe, oh, there she is. And I'm going to unmute you. Kind of took a second. There you go. You're okay. You're unmuted.
Hi.
Hi.
I wasn't expecting to be on camera, but no, I'm new to PHP. I'm actually a .NET programmer, and I've come across that Composer, and I just wanted, she mentioned that there was information explaining how to use the Composer, and I just wanted her to send it to me. That's all. It wasn't anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have any specific questions. Thank you. I didn't have any specific questions, but I just wanted to get that same information to look at.
Is that just a web page somewhere, Diana, that we can just put in the chat?
Yeah, I'll put the chat and I'll send her separately an email as well. But so
Okay.
there's the PHP repo, which I can send it to you, David, and you can put it in the chat.
Okay.
And then there's also steps, I think, in the SDK. So let me, shall I send it to you on Skype or?
Or I mean, you could put it right in the Zoom webinar in the chat right here.
Okay.
That's fine. The link.
And let me also see if the SDK documentation has some additional information, so I can put that link as well. So.
Looks like there's some generic other websites out there that are really high overview, like getting started with Composer tutorial. I just searched for a PHP Composer overview, and it seems like there's a lot out there.
Yeah, and
as well.
yeah, the second link that I just sent as well has the installation instruction using Composer and in Unix and Mac, so you can refer the PHP, and you can directly reach out to me, through support tickets or Twitter or whatever, and we can answer separately as well.
Perfect. With that said, I think we'll probably wrap up. Maybe I'm going to put you back to being move you back to being a participant as soon as I find the button to click. Close. Participants. There we go. Dan, I would like to thank you for being a guest on this week's Hangout. Next week, everybody, we'll do open office hours. Jimmy Wong is going to be the host. I will be out of the office next Friday. And then the week after that, I will get a guest lined up, and we'll have another guest the week after that. So again, hit the developer site, developer.intuit.com/hub/events, and you can see any of the current or future Google Hangouts we have planned out. Or, sorry, they're not Google Hangouts anymore, our Intuit developer Hangouts that we have planned for the future. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Diana. Thank you.
Bye, David.
Bye.